Hey crew, welcome back. We are almost here. We've almost made it to the weekend, and we are actually doing that thing, that dreaded F word called factoring. I love factoring. Factoring is going to be useful for the end of the year for us. It's going to be useful in geometry and even more useful in Algebra 2 PC and beyond. So it's really, 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 really critical that you guys make your best attempt to understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and that we get good at it and that we get quicker at this. So we're going to start off with the easier ones. And we'll start with x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay, and we're going to use our x method or the diamond method to accomplish factoring. Now, we have to remember back to when we found a, b, and c from a quadratic before. So the a is in front of the x squared, that's our 1. The b is in front of the x, we have 6. And our c is our plain old number, which is 9. So now we are going to start with a blank x, this blank diamond. And we have to fill in the same kind of information that I gave you earlier this week. So on the top, it's always going to be a times c over b. Okay, so one way to remember that, b is on the bottom. Okay, or I always tell my students, okay, you're the firstborn, you can kind of do your own thing. Your parents are just trying to figure out how to parent. And then the second child comes along, this middle child, and they're like, well, we got to learn from our mistakes and everything that our older child did wrong. So we're really going to lay down the rules. And then by the time the baby of the family comes around, the C value, they are so exhausted from raising the first 2 kids or the first 4 kids that the last child kind of gets away with a lot. Okay, so the middle kind of always gets the shaft. So once again, our middle, the B, gets the shaft on the X too. Okay, so if I'm looking at A times C, I've got 1 times 9, which is 9. Our B value is 6. Our B value goes to the bottom. So it's the same as before. What 2 numbers multiply to 9 and add up to 6? Let's see. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 plus 3 is 6. Now, when we get a value that is not 1 here, so if this was not 1, we would have to use what we call our box. And we've seen these boxes before when we were multiplying things, but instead we would put them inside the box, and that's what we'll talk about next week. So the only time we can skip our box is when A is 1. That is the only time. So as I'm doing this and I'm thinking this through, okay, what times what would get me to x squared? Well, the only thing to get me to x squared is x times x. Now then I think, okay, which 2 numbers multiply to 9 and add to 6? So this is where our plus 3 and our plus 3 go. Now I want to show you that when I factored this, that this is actually correct. So we are going to go back to what we did last week. We're going to take x plus 3 times x plus 3, and we're going to multiply these out. Remember, you can do your rainbows if you prefer. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 3 is 9. And then we combine like terms. I only have 1x squared. 3x and 3x is 6x. And then we have 9. This is what we started with. When we factor it, we are putting it into intercept form. So we are going to be able to find the intercepts to graph this later. Now we're not going to do that now. The only thing we're going to do right now is factoring. So this factors into x plus 3 times x plus 3. We're breaking it down. So our next problem, x squared plus 8x plus 15. Find your A, your B, and your C. A is 1. That's great. That means we can shorten things up. B is 8. C is 15. So when I am making my X, remember A times C is on top and B goes to the bottom. So A times C, 1 times 15 is 15. B is 8. So I need to find two factors that multiply to 15 and add to 8. Well, you guys are getting good at this, and so you're probably screaming at the computer saying, it's 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. 5 plus 3 is 8. So when I factor, I've got x times x. I've got a positive 5 and a positive 3. Now, when you go put this in the calculator, or excuse me, when you go put this into Canvas, you're going to have something that looks like this. It's going to leave a blank here and there. It's going to ask you to put your smaller number first and your bigger number second. It does not matter in my book, in mathematicians' books, which one you put first. However, in Canvas, because it works better this way, if you put small first and then big, and that's just the way I decided we're going to do it, we need to put the smaller number here. And keep in mind, I want you to put that plus sign. And then our bigger number is the 5, so we need plus 5. So in Canvas, I am putting plus 3 for my first answer, plus 5 for my second answer. Do not forget the plus sign or it marks it wrong. Believe me, I checked. Okay, so you need plus 3, plus 5, and you're done. All right, another example. We've got x squared minus 14x plus 40. A is 1, B is negative 14, C is 40. A times C on top, B on the bottom. 1 times 40, and then B is negative 14. So what multiplies to 40 and adds to negative 14? We need two negatives to make that positive. 10 times 4, negative 10 times negative 4 is 40. Negative 10 plus negative 4 is negative 14. So when I'm factoring, and remember the x is 1, that's the only reason we can do this. We have x and x, we've got a negative 10 and a negative 4. So when I'm plugging this into Canvas, here's my smaller number. That's what I'm writing. I'm writing negative 10. And then my bigger number is negative 4, and I'm actually typing in negative 4. Okay, I've got 3 more examples to do. And then it is off to the races with homework. All right, x squared minus x minus 90. A is 1, B is negative 1, C is negative 90. So you make the x. We have A times C. So 1 times negative 90. And then we have our B on the bottom. All right, positive times a negative. 10 times 9 is 90. And we subtract them, we get 1. So we need a bigger negative. 9 times negative 10 is negative 90. 9 plus negative 10 is negative 1. So when I factor, and this is only because A is 1, we have x times x. I've got a positive 9 and a negative 10. The smaller number is negative 10 and then positive 9. Okay, we've got x squared minus 23x minus 50. Now, some of you are going to get really good at this, and you're going to think, I don't even think I have to make that x. What multiplies to negative 50 and adds to negative 23? And you're going to say, oh, Mrs. Carroll, I think it's a negative 25 and a positive 2. And I would say you are correct. And then you fill in your x's. And if we can get to that point where you don't need the x, that's like bonus, and you are on your way to really having this figured out. Now, for those of us that need it, we're going to take A times C over B. So I've got A, B, C. So A times C is negative 50, and B is negative 23. And just like we said here, Negative 25 times 2 is negative 50, and we add them, we get negative 3, which gives us this answer here. Okay, last one, x squared plus 32x minus 144. We've got A, B, C. So when I take A times C, 1 times negative 144 over the B value, need a positive and a negative. Let's write down our factors of 144. We got 1 and 144, 2 and 72, 3 and 40, let me think, 12, 24, 48. Oh, we've got 4 and 36. Hey, there's my pair. 4 and 36 when I subtract gets us to 32. My bigger number needs to be positive. 36 minus 4 gets us to 32. So only because the A is 1, we can write x and x, and I've got a positive 36 and a negative 4. And you're going to say, but Mrs. Carroll, we can't write that in Canvas. You're correct. So on Canvas, you will need to put your negative 4 first and your positive 36, and that's how you'll type it in. Okay, make sure you don't have any spaces. You'll just write minus 4 and then plus 3, 6. No spaces, and make sure you have your positive symbol, your plus sign, or you have your negative. If you have questions, let me know. I'm just an email away, and I will talk to you soon.